Out here, it's more than just style. It's a statement. From the legends who shaped the West to the modern-day mavericks carving their own trail, Carmen Inc. brands have been outfitting the bold for generations. Stetson clothing, a classic, rugged, iconic, a name that says you know where you come from. Roper apparel, built for those who rise early, ride hard, and live proud. And Tin Hall, loud souls for the bold souls, the ones who don't just walk the walk, they stomp it. No matter your path, arena dirt, honky-tonk floor, or wide open highway, wear what moves you. Stetson, Roper, Tin Hall, worn by legends, made for today. Carmen Inc., rooted in tradition, driven by grit. So find your fit. Shop now at your favorite Western retailer or online today. Today's episode of Musical Miles Podcast is brought to you by Carmen Inc.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Hey, music lovers, welcome to Musical Miles Podcast. I'm your host, Byron Duffin, and I am here with Cowboy Troy, better known as Troy Coleman.
That's me.
The third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Named after my daddy and my granddaddy.
Yeah? Yeah. Are they still around?
Daddy is, yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, so you were born and raised in Dallas, Texas, or you were born in Victoria.
Yes, born in Victoria and spent my childhood in Fort Worth and in Dallas.
Yeah.
So I spent 11 years in Fort Worth, 14 years in Dallas, all total. So yeah, I'm from North Central Texas.
Yeah, beautiful place. Love that part of Texas.
Yeah.
Spent a little bit of time there myself. I used to ride cutting horses, and so I spent some time there. That's the place, right?
Yeah, that is.
If you're going to be around the horse deal, it's
plenty of room up there.
Yeah, well, that not only that, but all the events. Will Rogers Coliseum is such a cool place. And then the north side, the stockyards.
Fort Worth is great for all that.
Oh, what a cool place. What a cool place. Well, so you currently live in Dallas or in the Dallas area?
I live close.
To Dallas.
I'm in the area, yes.
Okay, cool. But you did spend some time up in Nashville. But let's talk a little bit about your musical journey, because this is really about your music and kind of how you got started in this deal, because it's a very unique story.
Yeah. So, I started out messing around with music in college.
Okay.
I was DJing frat parties and other parties and stuff, and, just kind of coming up with ideas on, making what I thought would have been a cool mixture of rap. But then as I got more into it, I got to the idea of like using country instruments.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, wouldn't it be kind of cool if, we use rap vocal with traditional country instruments?
Yeah.
And, the more you start messing around with it, I was rapping. I got the idea that, rap and country would go well together from being in the country bars. Because the clubs, people would dance to the 45 minutes of the, traditional country music set, and then the last 15 minutes of the hour, the DJ or the band would play rap, rock, whatever, techno music. And every time a rap song came on in a country bar, everybody was dancing. You have a sea of cowboy hats. Everybody's out there dancing. So I knew it would work.
Sure.
I knew I wasn't the only one that liked rap in country, in a country context. So it's like, well, why don't we start looking at rapping about country themes and country ideas and then using country instruments after college. By then, I'd gotten into that particular phase of looking into those types of ideas and imagery and all that kind of stuff, and it just made sense.
Yeah.
So in 2001, I put out my first independent record called Hick Hop Hysteria.
Okay.
It was a 3-song EP that, I'd co-written with some folks, and I was like, okay, this might work. This might work, and started passing them around. I got to Nashville, going back and forth between Dallas and Nashville at that time, and trying to get in. And, the first time I was trying to get into the business, it didn't work too well.
Yeah.
People were looking at me kind of, oh, that doesn't make sense. It's going to work, trust me. And they're like, yeah, cool story, bro.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's going to work. And, I had been friends with John Rich since 1993. So John knew what I was working on.
Right. Back when he was in Lone Star.
Even before they got their record deal.
Okay.
But yes,
in
that context. And so I met John in 93, and then in 1999, on one of my first trips to Nashville, he introduced me to Big Kenny.
Okay.
And so I kind of knew what was going on, and they knew what I was up to. And, eventually they got a record deal with Warner Brothers.
Right.
And they asked me to be on their first album, Horse of a Different Color. And I made an appearance on Rollin', the Ballad of Big and Rich.
Yeah.
And at that particular point, you know, I'd still been working on my own stuff, and John and Kenny managed to get Warner Brothers to take a look at me, and then I ended up getting a record deal. And then my first major label record came out in 2005, Locomotive.
Yeah, Locomotive. Yeah.
You know, and I Play Chicken with the Train was on that one.
Yeah.
And that was how it really just kind of pushed me out there. Yeah.
Well, let's back up just a little bit, because you went to school in Austin.
University of Texas,
University of Texas in Austin, and huge music scene in that Austin, New Braunfels, San Marcos area, and so you were exposed to a lot of that, and like you said, you were in and out of those clubs on 6th Street and in the area.
That's correct. You know, I spent a lot of time, whether it was a rock club, rap club, I mean, you know, techno, dance music, you know, industrial, progressive rock, or whatever it was, any kind of music that was alternative metal, anything that was out there. I listened to Tejano music growing up, you know. So it was all kinds of influences that you can actually hear on my first major album. You know, where I was just kind of experimenting with a lot of different sounds. And
well, I still get that even in your latest record a little bit. Which I loved. Well, let's go through the chronological of your records. So let's talk a little bit. So 05 was when you did Locomotive. And when I Played Chicken with a Train is even before that, I apologize. What was your degree in? You did get a degree.
Yeah, my undergraduate degree is in psychology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And then, you know, as far as schooling went, I started off graduate school working on a Master of Science in Economics.
Okay.
And then about 2/3 of the way through, I dropped the program. I wound up in Nashville, and, you know, I toured for quite a bit. And then in December of 2011, I decided to try and go back and finish grad school in the midst of all the touring and stuff. But the program I was in was no longer offered where I was going to school at the time. So I ended up transferring schools and getting a different major, and wound up working part-time on school while I was still touring full-time, and wound up getting an MBA in marketing. And I was able to do that on distance education, you know, electronically, just wherever I was. I was emailing my professors my assignments. You know, did it from Australia, Canada, wherever I was in the world. You know, I'm emailing my work in while we're still out running around. But yeah, so.
But that really lends itself to what you've done with your career, the marketing.
The marketing does. It, you know, I wanted to do that because it would allow me to apply what I learned from school to my actual day-to-day, you know, work with music. And interestingly enough, the final project that I did for marketing research was studying the music consumption preferences of country music fans.
Oh, wow.
How do they consume their music? How do they get their music? You know, everything from streaming to buying their music digitally or physical copies, all of that kind of stuff. Consuming it on radio or however you could find, or television. And that was what my research was.
That's great. Well, that gave you a real introspective in how this whole music industry works. And you probably understand it better than I do. I mean, way better than I do. But we've learned a lot in the last little bit, and we talk with a lot of the artists about the streaming platform. Older artists were used to, you know, akin to yourself. You've been in this deal for probably close to 30 years now.
Well, just overall, just kind of messing around with it. Officially earning my living at it, 20. But knocking around at it, yes.
But you've seen it change a lot in 20 years.
I remember my first records, I was selling them out of the back of my vehicle. Like, hey, man, you know, you're in the parking lot. Hey, would you like a CD? Nowadays, people look at you, what's a CD? They're like, you know, the new vehicles don't come with CDs.
Oh, no, I'm no doubt. Well, I was at a songwriter festival in Whitefish, Montana, and one of the artists, Stephanie Quayle, says, hey, you know Stephanie, she's like, hey, did you get a CD? And I'm like, no. And she goes, can you play one? And I go, I don't know. Well, take it anyway.
Right.
Says, because they're trying to get rid of them. But you know, the streaming platform is really, it's been positive in some respects and negative in others, in that you know, the earning potential from that, you have to hit millions and millions of streams for it to be very lucrative.
Right. And for the fan, it's a great opportunity, you know, and you want to make sure your fans have a great opportunity in a way to get your music and consume it how they choose. The thing about it is that, and I've explained this before with people, is that when it comes to the streaming services, you can pay $15 a month for a premium service, roughly.
Right.
15 to 20 bucks, and you get unlimited streaming of every bit of music that's ever been made and recorded.
Yes.
Anywhere in the world.
Agreed.
For $20 a month, say.
Yeah.
Or you could say spend $15 or $20 for one CD or for one artist.
Or 30 album or 30 for a vinyl.
Yeah, 30 for a vinyl.
But
for one artist for one album.
And it might have 2 songs on there that you like. Those
Right.
are the days I grew up.
Right.
That's how we got our
That's
music.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, well, I get it. The fans want to save money and still get the music. That's cool. But the sound quality is way different when you're listening to music
Oh, no doubt.
on a stream, because it's not as full, because that takes up a lot of space and it will slow down the actual playback of the stream. I get it and I understand it, but man, I tell you, there's something about sitting down listening to an older cassette or a vinyl with headphones on,
yeah.
or if you had the money. I didn't have the money for the big sound system,
Right,
But
right.
occasionally my
Set up
dad would let
big
me
Bose,
use his sound
Bose
system
set,
at the house. But if I'm sitting in my room, I got headphones on and I'm listening, and it's like you can hear every little bit
Yeah.
in the nooks and crannies.
But
of that
to be
LP.
honest with you, and this is kind of what Shanda and I started this podcast about, was the premise of live music.
Yeah.
There's no replacement for the live experience
No, because the set is going to be different probably.
every time. And there's there's some variation on the songs that and you've done this a long time, and you've worked with a lot of different artists, but it's just the live music experience is just something but you'd be amazed how many people have never seen a live.
Yeah,
And
you can get lost in the music if you're at a live show.
oh yeah.
There were periods of time where, early in my career, I would sit down, even when we're at home, off the road, I would sit down and turn on a channel that would have live concerts.
Yeah.
And I would sit down and I would watch the live concert. Even,
Right.
just because, okay, it's a band I really like. And, there was one time I was watching, it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't seen them live since 1991.
Oh wow.
I saw them on the second Lollapalooza tour,
Oh wow.
and they were headlining. That tour, the second Lollapalooza, was Pearl Jam opened at 12 noon. Soundgarden was on at 1.
Oh my gosh.
Ministry came on after that. Then after that was Ice Cube, and then the Chili Peppers headline.
Oh wow.
That was a festival.
Yeah, that's a real festival.
That was a festival. So I hadn't seen the Chili Peppers since that event.
right.
And so I sat down and I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it with, all the artists that I really liked.
Yeah.
And I'd sit and watch this channel. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But it was really something to see the live audience and
Yeah.
the fans there screaming the songs back,
Oh yeah.
screaming everything back.
It's just it's a whole different experience. And one thing that I loved that CMT came at the Crossroads
Yeah.
series that they did. I got lost in those. I could sit and watch every one of those.
Yep, that's
and
pretty
I've
cool.
watched multiple Kelsey Ballerini and who was she on with Halsey.
Yep.
They did one and it was cool. I love to watch those. But okay, back to Cowboy Troy's music. So let's talk. So your second album was
Black in the Saddle.
Black in the Saddle. That was in 07. But prior to that, you got hooked up with the Nashville Star, right? Is that
I did. I wound up being a co-host on Nashville Star on USA Network here
Yeah.
in the United States, and then Canada, they would simulcast it on CMT Canada.
okay?
So I would get up there. I was on seasons 4 and 5.
With Winona,
Winona was on season 4,
And
and Jewel was on season 5.
how were those girls to work with?
They were great.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
It was really cool because I had been buying their music as a fan
Sure.
for years prior to that, and then
Sure.
to actually get to meet
Right.
them and then work with them
Right.
was a really cool experience
Yeah,
for me.
I'm sure it was. I'm a big fan of both of them.
And TV work is really fun because as a kid, I used to want to be a game show host.
All right.
I spent a lot of time watching, Bob Barker, Chuck Woolery, and Wink Martindale
you
as a
go.
kid, especially in the summers because
yeah.
as a kid, you didn't have to go to school. My parents worked. I was, a latchkey kid. So
Right.
I'd sit at home during the summers, and after I mow the yard, I'm in the house watching game shows.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it
Cool.
was really cool to watch.
Yeah.
And then and the producers found that out. They're like, "You wanted to be a game show?" I was like, "Yeah, man." And I was like, "This was really cool." And I told them about it, and so to have the opportunity to get up there and talk with a microphone and, "Hi, how's everybody doing? Thanks for tuning in. This is Nashville Star." They were like, "Oh man, that's cool."
You're good at it because you'd been practicing on the couch
Since I was
you were
a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So then along Black in the Saddle, 2007, and let's talk a little bit about that. How was that album? And,
That
and what was-
album, okay, Black in the Saddle was a little bit, I want to say, angrier.
Okay,
In
yeah.
terms of the musical delivery.
Okay.
Because after the first album, it was like all fun and games, and then it's like, man, this is like, I Play Chicken with the Train was specifically about, okay, going head to head against the traditional music industry and the corporate, side of things in the country music industry. Am I going to have an opportunity to express myself using rap vocals over traditional country instruments?
Right.
Because we didn't know if it was going to be, accepted or not. You get laughed at for doing things that are considered to be kind of out in the field, like,
Sure.
oh, this is cool, but it may
Yeah.
not work for our audience.
Yeah.
But, you have the opportunity to try it. And the fans started getting into it.
Yeah.
But country radio wouldn't play it at that time because there's too much rap in it.
Yeah.
But now here we are 20 years later, and now you see
Yeah,
where
you
it's come
got
from.
Walker Hayes and some of these.
Well,
other
that's
artists.
great.
Yeah,
That's
but-
great. But what I'm saying is,
But
I
you
look
were
at-
you
I-
you were the
I was
you were the beginning. You were the start in the country world.
How does the phrase go? Pioneers get slaughtered, settlers prosper.
There you go.
So I mean, it's kind of like
Yeah.
I knew going into it was going to be a hard
Yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
But now it's like and I've been telling people it's going to work. It's going to work. Yeah, whatever, dude. Oh
Yeah.
no, trust me, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And here we are, all these years later, 20
Yeah.
years later,
Yeah.
and it's working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I told you.
Well,
but I'm
even-
glad, and I don't see it begrudgingly. I'm just like, I knew it was going to work, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that I had, some help in doing
Yeah.
in landing that footprint.
Yeah, well, and you'll get that recognition. It may take. I mean, and
Who knows?
And who knows?
Who knows how long it'll take?
Yeah.
But I told people hip hop music is going to.
So, did you coin that phrase, hick hop?
I mean, I trademarked it.
did you really?
I have the registered trademark for
that's
hick hop.
cool.
We used to get called Hicks for in rap and
Right.
country music.
Right.
Back when I was running around clubs in Dallas.
Sure.
So I was like, what? That's kind of a cool thing, hick hop. I think I'm going to trademark that phrase.
Yeah.
I'm going to trademark. And sure enough, once I got to a point in the industry where I could do that, I talked to my lawyer, and he's like, well, okay, we'll go and try and get it. 6 months later, here's your registered trademark.
Did you get any flack from the hip hop scene at all?
I mean, I was getting flack from both sides.
Both
of the fence.
sides of the fence,
and,
yeah.
and every now and again, I don't get as much now,
yeah.
but I do kind of get the knowing nod when they see me walking around. Like, oh, that's the
Oh,
guy.
that's
Like,
the guy.
oh,
There's
okay.
the hick hop guy.
Yeah, they know. Everybody
Cool.
knows.
Cool. So after Black in the Saddle,
Mm-hmm.
Demolition Mission.
Demolition Mission. It was another independent record. I had lost the deal with Warner Brothers, and then went back independent. And I'm like, well, I'm still gonna make music. I still
Yeah.
love music, and started working on stuff, and came up with some songs, and wanted to have some songs that sounded, rock and roll, and some that sounded country-ish, and
Yeah.
some that sounded with the hip hop. And I felt like in order to gain new listeners, and I've said this before, I think that it's important to have at least, 40% of your albums, the newer projects, should probably sound like songs that remind people of why they like you in
Yeah.
the first place.
Yeah.
And then you can branch out on the other songs.
That makes sense, and I never thought of it that way. But I've been to some concerts where they try and force feed you all their new stuff, and they don't.
Yeah.
You forget about the stuff that made me be a fan in the beginning. Okay,
I mean, I don't mind you playing new songs, but they need to remind me of why I liked you in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that they sound a lot like my older
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
That
then
makes
And then
sense.
you branch out a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you have the opportunity to say, okay, we're experimenting. Because if all your albums sound like the very first one that everybody likes you for, there's no need to make a new one if it's
Yeah.
all going to sound the same.
Yeah.
But the new stuff needs to have enough of the old style
Yeah.
to remind you.
Yeah.
Now, there are some artists that will go for a period of time, and they'll do that formula where they'll have some old stuff that sound like it, and then the new stuff they branch out. And then after a while, you can go out and you put in a brand new, after about 10, 15 years, you put out an album that sounds just like your first one.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, in the interim, you have to have.
Well,
you
it's
have
a
to experiment.
progression.
You
It's
have
a progression.
To, you have to
and-
experiment.
Yeah, I can see that.
You have to experiment.
Okay, so that was in 2009, Demolition Mission. Then King of Clubs was in 14, right?
King of Clubs back on Warner Brothers. It was one of those albums. By then, talking to the guys that helped produce it. It was John Rich from Big and
Right,
Rich,
right.
DJ Sinister,
Okay.
and Charlie Panaccio.
Okay.
Charlie Panaccio is known as Charlie Steele, actually from the pop band Lanier.
Oh, okay.
They had their big hit, Sending All My Love, back in
Yeah.
the 90s. It's a huge multi-platinum hit. So those guys helped produce this record.
Oh, wow.
And they mixed it together and wanted it to sound, John was handling the production on the country stuff.
Right.
Sinister and Charlie were working on making sure it had the club feel to it. So it had the boom and the thump. So if you listen to those songs on that record, it was originally mixed and mastered to play one song after another like you're still DJing.
Oh, okay.
So you could put,
so it was
you could put it in and push play.
quick play and spend the whole night on that album.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. But now that one was a fun record, a fun party record. Matter of fact, DJ Sinister and I are working on some new tracks that are reminiscent of that album.
Oh,
We're
cool.
working on those now. Probably after the first year, we'll probably have something.
Fun. Then 2015, Saloons of Neptune.
Yeah, Saloons on Neptune was an album.
On Neptune,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, Saloons on Neptune was an album where I'm like, okay, I like the way we were working on King of Clubs, so let's make some more club music and some more party music.
Yeah.
Carrying on that idea of making sure, okay, this album just came out. Well, here's some stuff that sounds very similar to that.
I kind of tie it
You
together.
got to tie it together, got to push.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah,
It's fun.
Now, were you still with Warner Brothers
Not
on
on
that?
that
You were
one.
back on independent.
Correct.
Okay, and then you went till 18, so 3 more years, and then Laugh with Me.
Laugh With Me came out. I did that as a co-venture with ILS and Caroline through Universal.
Okay,
So that was considered another major because it had major distribution.
Sure.
So I did that one, and it was more of wanting to make some songs like I had,
Yeah.
with the rap and the country, the hip hop on it.
Yeah.
But then there were 2 songs on that album, well, actually 2 or 3, that were more traditional
Yeah.
sounding.
duets, right? Or
Well, no, so
no, not
Dance
duet.
Floor Romance was a traditional Texas swing song.
Okay.
Come See Me was another Texas swing song.
Okay.
So I wanted to have some songs on there that sounded just like that. And then Beer Bubbles,
Okay.
was another song that was really fun, and it was a traditional sounding
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
And then As Long as It's in Texas was the first single off of that.
Okay.
And that was it had the Texas Southwest Tejano flair to it.
Right. Okay. Well, then we come to 2023, and you got the Songs from the Piney Woods.
That was when I was living out in East Texas.
Okay, and that makes sense now. I was looking at that title and going, okay, there's got to be something to do with East Texas and all those pines.
Yeah.
That country's a little freaky to me because it's hard to see out there.
Yeah, it can be. So I was living there after we moved back to Texas, living in East Texas, living in a small town called Big Sandy.
Okay.
And, I was like, you get influenced by where you are.
Right.
When you write. And so I was sitting around and I started, knocking around looking at ideas, and I had some song ideas, and just every once in a while I'd go into town and into the city, experience some stuff. But man, I tell you, this would be cool. So I started writing these songs based on my mindset living out there.
Right.
And it just worked out.
Well, and it was more. It seemed to me more traditional country. There was a lot of pedal steel in that,
Exactly.
and fiddle.
Yes, exactly.
Right? But then we get to the bottom end of that deal, and the last 2 songs are
Relaxing.
very different.
Yeah, Relax and Chill was one.
Yeah, relax and chill.
I wanted to make a song where it was just more, I could just sit and
it's pretty chill.
sit and be at peace.
Yeah, I could
know?
see that. I could see that just listening to that and
I
just
spent a lot
chill.
of time on the back porch
Yeah,
there.
I can relate. We have a beautiful backyard and a deck that Miss Shanda and I spend a lot of time on, and
it's
and that
awesome.
it's a way to unwind after a tough day. And
When you live in the city,
Yeah.
so many years, and then you actually go into the country and get to
Yeah,
live there
yeah.
for 6 years.
yeah,
I mean, you can really relax there.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
have a different mindset when you move back into the city. It's like, okay, this is a lot different.
Yeah.
A lot different. but it's
Well,
cool.
yeah, we're country people ourselves. I mean, I mean, there's less than 2 million people live in the entire state of Idaho. So
Wow.
So and it's a big state.
Oh, it is.
You know, it's not as big as Texas, but it's a big state. But love Texas, love where you're from. You know, we met years ago. I don't know if you remember that. Miss Amy introduced us. So Miss Amy Keene is a mutual friend of ours.
Yep.
Kind of put us together. But we met here at the NFR. But you've been working with Roper and this crew, Stetson and Roper, for
12 years?
12 years. Yeah.
12, 13 years.
Okay. Because my wife has worked here at the NFR for them. I think this is her 18th year. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So, but they've been really, really supportive of the music industry, and they've
have.
had some great artists that they've sponsored and taken care of, and you're one of them.
Yep.
And I see you're one of the most loyal. And what I love about this, and I'm a loyal guy. I used to work in the cowboy rope business, and so I put a deal together with these guys years ago, and worked with Nick and Carrie and so they've just been really, really good to us and to our family. Our kids have worked here at the NFR, a couple of our kids, and they're just such a great company.
They are.
And we wanted to make sure that we gave a good shout out to Roper and Stetson.
Yeah, Roper, Stetson, Ten Hall, the folks that work there. You know, Carrie Vastine, Carrie Moldenhauer,
Yes.
Amanda. You know, everybody's so cool. Amanda Gaz.
Yes, yes,
You know,
yes.
everybody's been so cool to me as an individual, and that's how I started. That's how I got to working with Amy.
Yeah,
You know, was here, and they've always been so nice to me. And whenever I get a chance to wear their products on television, you know, I'll do it and wear them on shows, on festivals, fairs.
Yeah.
And we've been touring a long time, and so
Yes, you have.
People look up and they see that, oh, that's a Roper.
Yeah.
You know, that's a Stetson.
And
that's
that's
a Tinhole.
important. That's absolutely important. People don't realize how important it is to be loyal to your sponsors and take care of those guys.
They've been very, very kind, and I'm grateful to even have the opportunity to still be an endorsee for them. And I'm just grateful for that, and I'm just glad that I get an opportunity to still wear their product as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, typically I tell people where we're at. We are here at the Roper Marketplace.
Yeah, the Roper Cowboy Christmas here in the Horseshoe Casino.
There you go. There you go. Great event. This is only the second year here in this facility. It used to be at the Mandalay Bay.
Right.
But anyway, we wanted to make sure we gave a shout out to Roper and those guys. But so what's your plans? Where are you going from here? What do you got going? You said you were working on some new music.
Yeah. I'm always, you know, I like to look at it in the sense as a songwriter, as an artist, you're always going to be noodling around with something gets stuck in your head. Because one of those things for me is I find that if I get a song idea, it kind of pesters me if I don't do something about it. So it gets in my head. And there are, like, a lot of the songs from the Piney Woods were songs that kind of got in my head. And they kind of kept bugging me until I got it down on paper, you know, the lyric, and then got to the point where I could record it.
Right.
Once I recorded it, I was able to release it, and I wasn't harping on it.
Yeah.
If I didn't release it, I would continue to harp on it.
Sure.
So, you know, I've always got stuff kind of noodling around up there.
Yeah.
But I'm always writing something.
Are you still touring with Big and Rich at all?
Yeah. We just finished our 20th anniversary tour this year, and we're getting ready to go back out next year.
Cool.
Matter of fact, so
cool.
You know, we've been friends for a long time, and we've been working together a long time too.
I've been a fan of those guys a long time.
They're good dudes.
I can tell that. I've never had the chance to meet them, but seem to be really cool guys. And and I, once again, it's a loyalty thing. And you guys have stayed together, tied together for 20 years. That says a lot.
Yeah, you know, the entertainment industry can be kind of difficult.
Oh yeah.
You know, but to be able to maintain friendships is really awesome, especially when you got some folks that you know you've got their back, they've got your back, and they always support you and you always support them. It's really cool. And, you know, whether you're in music or whatever, you could be in construction.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you find people like that, you want to hang on.
Oh, no. Relationships are everything. And I've said that all along. And I've told my children growing up, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yep.
And if you take care of those people, you know, here at the NFR, when we came down, we just started this podcast in July.
Yep.
So we were trying to decide where are we going to do these interviews. Even this was a little quick, offhanded here. But, you know, I was talking with a friend of mine in Pendleton, Oregon, Pat Beard, and Pat said, "Hey, you're going to the finals. Where are you going to do your podcast?" I said, "Man, I don't know. We'll get down there and figure it out."
Yep.
And he said, let me make a call. And he called his friend Cody Odom, who's set up over at the Westgate. And I called Cody, and Cody goes, you have free range of the Zen Lounge. And so I've shot some videos, some podcast interviews over there. But once again, it's about who you know and those relationships that you build. And my reputation with Pat Beard got me in the door with Cody Odom. So,
that's awesome.
And my relationship with Miss Amy, and she has been on the phone with me every day for the last 2 weeks. Hey, what can I do to help you with this podcast? But I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. You're a busy man, and
well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And it's cool to be able to sit down with you and hear your backstory and understand how this whole thing came together, because it's you've got a long storied history, and most people don't know the story. They don't know. I wanted to know, how did you break in, and where did it come from? You know, I know that, you know, we all have. I mean, did you have any musical family members, or is your parents musical?
So my dad got his bachelor's degree in music.
Oh wow!
And he played. He was the drum major for the marching band at his school.
Okay.
He was in college, and so we always had music playing in the house.
Right.
And whether it was dad's vinyls or mom's vinyls, there was always some kind of music playing around the house.
Right,
so
right.
I had an early exposure to music from a tiny tot up until now. You know, it's always been something that's been pretty cool for me. I always loved music.
Well, as did I. But let me ask you this: so what was the music your parents were listening to? What were they spinning on vinyls?
Oh man, Dad, loves jazz.
Okay.
So I mean, you could have anybody from Tom Brown, Chuck Mangione, Maynard Ferguson.
Okay.
Al Jarreau.
Yeah.
Had all kinds of stuff like that. Mom's records were stuff like Sam and Dave.
Okay.
Stevie Wonder.
Right. A little more fun.
Jackson 5. Stuff like that. So it was always some kind of cool music.
Yeah.
I started looking into, music that I liked as I got older. As a little kid, I was listening to stuff like Charlie Daniels, Jerry Reed, Roger Miller.
Oh yeah. I love those guys.
And then got into listening to, Def Leppard and rock bands like the Doobie Brothers.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Doobie fan.
So I mean, if you're listening to any of what's considered classic rock now, I was listening to that. My first album that I bought, it was actually a cassette. It was with my own,
your own
allowance money. Was Eliminator by ZZ Top.
Oh yeah, what a great album.
And I remember though, even before then, if I had like a budget, can I buy a record? Can I buy a record? They give me a budget. Okay, what do you want to get? I remember going to the store. I forget the name of it, but I remember getting 16 Greatest Hits by Chuck Berry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Chuck Berry. I listen to Maybelline and all.
Oh,
this,
yeah.
It's Johnny B. Good and all that stuff. The rock and roll, the old school rock and roll was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And even now, I'll go and I'll mix in a little Carl Perkins with Blue Suede Shoes.
Oh yeah,
isn't that right?
Yeah.
I thought that was Carl.
Yeah.
Blue Suede Shoes and the occasional Elvis tune.
And the Westgate is the old Hilton.
Yeah.
That's where Elvis lived. I mean, that was his residency there.
Right.
And what a cool place. And they have a lot of Elvis memorabilia. They've got a statue of Elvis in the lobby.
Yeah.
I was interviewing a kid there yesterday, and I said, you realize this is where Elvis went? And he goes, really? I wondered why all the Elvis stuff was here.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, have you not seen the movies?
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
But no, that's cool. That's cool. Well, so what's if I peeked at your Spotify playlist today, who'd be on it? Most recently.
Most recently, I kind of like a lot of the yacht rock, because it's considered yacht rock now, but it was easy listening or adult contemporary when I was a kid.
Okay.
So it would be on the radio. I mean, anything from stuff like Christopher Cross.
Oh yeah.
To Player, Baby Come Back.
Oh yeah.
The Stampeders had a song. I'm on my way to a place downtown.
Okay.
Sweet City Woman.
Oh yeah.
By the Stampeders.
Yeah,
Sweet City Woman. Cats like that.
Yeah.
I love listening to that kind of stuff.
I never realized that. I mean, I listened to all that stuff because I grew up. It was kind of coming out in the late '70s, early '80s. I'm not a my wife loves disco. I'm not a disco. I love all kinds of music, right?
Right.
And so my taste in music's very eclectic. I love some Prince. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I love all the classic rock, which to me is more country than country rock
it is
or
now.
than country music today.
It is now. It's
Modern country is a little different. I love Texas country.
Yeah, Texas country's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Ray Wiley Hubbard and of course Jerry Jeff Walker was a
Green.
legend. Pat Green.
Yeah.
I've seen Pat probably 7 or 8 times. Seen Cody Canada and The Departed multiple times.
Yep.
I've seen. We just saw Jack Ingram at Green Hall
Yeah.
about a month ago, and Cody Canada at Green Hall. But you know, Walt Wilkins. I mean, there's some great artists down there, great songwriters, and
If you want the traditional country sound close to Texas as it can be, Cody Johnson does that very well.
very well. And you know who else is kind of an up and comer that I think is going to be a big? Well, he's already proven to be big. Is Zach Top?
Zach Top is awesome.
He is the
He's
real
awesome.
deal, and he's a Washington boy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. His dad's an auctioneer up there.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
learning all this stuff, but there's some great artists. There's some great kids coming in from Texas to play here this week. Kid that is very reminiscent to me of Parker McCullum, a kid named Hudson Westbrook.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him. He's from Stephenville, Texas. He's so new on the scene, but he has 2.5 million followers on Spotify
Wow.
in less than a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and another kid, Braxton Keith. I don't know if you know Braxton,
Okay.
but some really talented guys. But anyway, lots of. What we found in Texas was that, and I'm sure in Nashville the same deal. But you know, you can flip over a rock and find a great guitar player, singer, songwriter.
There's a lot of pickers running around Nashville.
Yeah.
If you need somebody to play, figure out what style you want, you'll have it.
They're there.
They're all
Yeah,
over Nashville.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Troy, it has been a pleasure. I have really, really enjoyed this. It's good to get to know you a little bit better and understand kind of this whole deal. We wish you the very best of luck with
Thank
your
you.
new music and anything
Appreciate
you
it.
got coming on. And we'll continue to listen to you on Spotify. Tell them where they can find you on
Well, if you're going to look for me on Spotify, it's Cowboy Troy. Same
Yep.
thing on Pandora and all the other streaming services. I'm out there. I'm easy to find. And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm Cowboy Troy Global. On Twitter or X, I'm at Cowboy Troy. Facebook, I'm at Cowboy Troy as well. So
There you
can
go.
find me. I answer my own, messages and all that stuff. So if you feel like you need to hit me up on a message, if I see it, hit me
Yeah.
up. I'm around.
Cool. Well, Troy, we really, really appreciate it. It's been fun. For Musical Miles Podcast, I'm your host, Byron Duffin, here with Cowboy Troy. We look forward to seeing you somewhere down the road. Adios for now.